Kyle Shanahan, you are my test test 1 2. Going to be going live in a couple minutes here, guys. Hang in there. I know it's a black screen right now. What's up, everybody? Tony Farmer here. It is August 8th, Saturday. We got a lot to talk about, guys. Kyle Shanahan's press conference, which I thought was going to be benign. I wasn't even sure if he was going to get any questions about his accident. He got some questions. He had some answers, but his answers have left us with even more questions. Absolutely fascinating, guys. In my opinion, Kyle Shanahan's story is falling apart rapidly. I think it's spiraling, and I think we're going to see some major developments in the next week or so, and I'm going to explain why. Before we get into that, though, I want to go ahead and get to your comments. I appreciate your guys' support. Love having you here. Don't forget to like the stream. Thanks for looking out there, Austin. I appreciate you. Somebody here's got their popcorn ready. Oh, shit. Here we go with the popcorn and the drink. Let's go. Brighton, I recognize that name and that Steelers logo. You're very active on X. I appreciate your support very much. Worst chimes in and says, thanks for your hard work in covering this. Thank you so much. It really is a grind. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but the amount of time that I put into these stories is quite a bit. So much so that people accuse me of having no life and living in my parents' basement. And having no job, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate you guys recognizing the hard work. Jim says, I like the music. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you liking the music. And then Austin says, subscribe to the only real journalist in sports. You're too kind. I appreciate you. Cyrus gives us a little heads up here. We got another comment here. James Bush says, truth teller. Appreciate it. Jimbo, hey, Tony, keep up the good work. Man, you guys are spoiling me with the love today. I appreciate you. We got someone else chiming in, says, makes sense to me. He was being a doofus behind the wheel in reference to Kyle. We will get there, believe me. And then you have been proven right a few times now. You are doing amazing. Thank you very much, Kia. I appreciate you. Laura's in the house. Laura's in one of my favorites. If I had a Mount Rushmore of favorite X followers, Laura is on that Mount Rushmore. She's phenomenal. You guys should follow her on X, by the way. Laura, feel free to chime in with your Twitter handle and people can give you a follow. But guys, more comments. We'll get to those. I appreciate you. A couple housekeeping things before we really dive into this Kyle Shanahan accident stuff. First of all, Monday, I'm going to be doing a live stream just like this. You found me here. You can find me this way on Monday as well. And it's going to be with Nicole Gist. It's going to be a great conversation. She's been very active in the Rossini Vrabel story. I've been very active in the Rossini Vrabel story, as you guys know. So someone recommended on X the other day, hey, you guys should collaborate and do a live stream together. And I think it's a fantastic idea. She also has a very loyal following. She has a background in journalism. She was a credentialed reporter for a while, and she understands this whole idea of access journalism that we've been talking so much about. So tune into that show on Monday. The time is going to be 7 p.m. Eastern time. You don't want to miss it. I promise you. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I don't have a lot of scripted questions for Nicole. It's going to really be more sort of an organic conversation. I guess you could say Joe Rogan style in terms of whether you feel good about him or not, just in terms of the style of conversation. Just going to be sort of a long form interview that I'm very much looking forward to. Another thing that I wanted to point out before we start talking about Kyle's crazy press conference today, if you ask me, I just posted something on X and I wanted to share this with you guys. I thought this was interesting. We've talked a little bit about Jeremy Jones, the 49ers head of security, number one security guy in the building. Remember, he was the one that stonewalled beat reporters when they asked for the accident report. That accident report is so crucial and so important to this investigation. One, it's going to tell us who the officers were that were there. Can you believe Palo Alto PD won't even tell us who the officers were who were on scene? Unbelievable. Anyways, he stonewalled them, wouldn't let him see the report. The report would mention who was at fault. Remember, we had the clerical error. Remember, the government database originally said that Kyle was not at fault. Kyle later then said he was at fault. Palo Alto PD says, oh, clerical error. Well, if there was some sort of a cover-up, and if Palo Alto PD was trying to pin it on the 21-year-old victim, as the government database would suggest, then that report, guess what, would also say that she's responsible. So I find it interesting that they don't want to share that report, because that report, and there's people saying, oh, you're going to dox the victim. No, you can redact the victim's name. Stop with that. You can very easily redact it. It's not about that. There must be some other reason why Kyle Shanahan, Palo Alto PD, don't want to share this document. I'm just curious what that reason is. Same thing with the body cam footage. Anyways, I'm getting on a tangent here. Back to this story. This is the sheriff that Jeremy Jones worked for before he became a San Francisco 49er and became the number one security guy for the 49ers. Found guilty of corruption and misconduct. Jeremy Jones rose through the ranks of that sheriff's department really quickly. Started as a deputy sheriff, moved on to sergeant, moved on to lieutenant, moved on to captain. He rose up the ranks in a very impressive fashion. Underneath this, dare I say, can I call her corrupt? It says guilty of corruption. I'm going to call her corrupt. This corrupt sheriff. That's where Jeremy Jones worked. That's who Jeremy Jones learned from before he became a San Francisco 49er. Jeremy Jones is now the guy who stonewalls the 49ers beat writers and will not let them see that crucial accident report. So believe me, I'm going to be looking more into her. I'm going to be looking more into Jeremy. So stay tuned for that. That's not what this episode is about. We're going to be talking about some other stuff. Austin chimes in and says clerical error in a report involving the most high-profile figure in that area is such BS. Yeah, I had a cop comment on one of my posts and essentially say, hey, I've been a police officer. We know that when there's a high-profile individual involved, we double, triple, quadruple check. It wasn't passing the smell test for him. Laura says, just be transparent. Kendrick's great question. Kendrickles, great question. Can you request it? Guess what? I already have. I've requested it. I've requested the body cam footage. I've requested the 911 audio. And Palo Alto PD wrote me a letter back and said they ain't gonna give it up. And they cited certain laws. I've responded back citing certain laws. It's been 7 days. They have to, by law, at least tell me the scope of the documents that they're withholding. In other words, 2 body cameras. That would let us know there's 2 officers on scene, right? So I'm doing what I can to get this information. Remember, we also have, guys, the change.org petition. Over 100 signers so far. You can find that on my Twitter page. But if you just Google change.org Kyle Shanahan accident video, you can go ahead and sign that yourself. It'll take 2 minutes. I'd really appreciate it if you would sign that. What it does, it's not just for fun. What it does is it shows the City Council of Palo Alto. It shows the DA's office. It shows the Palo Alto Police Department that people are watching and people do care about this, guys. Because did you know that there is Senate bills out there that require body cam footage to be released in the cases of alleged police misconduct? Do you think we might have some police misconduct here, guys? Do you think? We know about the one clerical error. I still don't have an explanation for the second clerical error that nobody talks about. I did my last video on it. The fact that the government database said that 2 people were injured. Why does the government database say that 2 people were injured after they corrected the first clerical error if Kyle Shanahan, the police, and the 49ers are all saying that she wasn't injured? So we actually have 2 clerical errors here. And I would argue a third if you didn't correct the second error when you went to go in to correct the first one. So 2 to 3 clerical errors. You got 11 days of silence. There's so much to talk about. I haven't even got into Kyle Shanahan's press conference yet. You got 11 days of silence. You've got Kyle Shanahan. Guys, just listen to this. Just listen to this. This is the official story that they want you to believe, okay? Kyle Shanahan called up his friend, who he's known for decades, who was friends with his dad, wrote a book about Mike Shanahan. He's been inside his home. He calls him up and he tells him about the accident, doesn't say he was at fault, doesn't ask him to withhold the story. Adam Schefter then does withhold the story on his own accord, not to help Kyle out. He'd never do that. He just decided to on his own accord. And then apparently coordinated with the San Francisco 49ers on the release of the information 1 minute after they tweeted it. Do you think a friend would call another friend and leave that detail out? That he was responsible for the accident? And if he did leave that detail out, do you think the reporter on the other line of that phone wouldn't ask, Kyle, what happened? Who was at fault? Was it your fault? So I'm going to assume Kyle did share that information. And then Adam left that out of his 9:01 a.m. tweet. That's shady. I saw Grant Cohn had a response to Adam Schefter today, who tweeted out a 49ers tweet. And he said, you have a conflict of interest. You should stop covering the 49ers. Woo. I don't disagree. If Adam Schefter was held to the standard of a beat writer or any other journalist, that would be the case, guys. But because he has the title of insider, that gives him the right to act in a shady manner. That gives him the ability to skirt journalism ethics that every other writer in the country who's not labeled an insider has to live up to, or lose their job or be penalized. Get out of here. So this press conference today, I've got video for you as well. Let me catch up on the comments, though. Teslas have head-on collision avoidance. It would have stopped if he was going 20 miles per hour. That means it was slowed down to that. That's a really good point I hadn't considered. I appreciate that comment. It always struck me as funny that he would be driving 20 miles per hour in the first place. Like, I don't know many people who drive under the speed limit. I just don't. So, yeah, maybe there was braking and the impact happened at 20 miles per hour. That's an interesting theory. I appreciate you sharing that. We've got some other comments here. We've got Austin saying, the funny thing is, if everyone was forthcoming from the get-go, we all would have moved on by now. I can only speak for myself. I sure as hell would have moved on by now. You guys got to remember, I'm a San Francisco 49er fan. I don't want to see Kyle Shanahan suspended by the league. I don't want to see Kyle Shanahan take time off. I don't want to see Kyle Shanahan in jail. I don't want to see any of that. And if you're like me and you want this story to go away quickly, I'm accused of milking this story. No, I actually want it to go away quickly. There's plenty of other stories out there I can cover. The Matt Miller stuff, the Rossini stuff just got reinvigorated. I want this story over. And the quickest way for this story to be over is for Kyle Shanahan to do the common sense thing and release the Tesla data. Release the video. And if you don't want to release your Tesla video, you can release the body cam footage and you can do it in a redacted manner. If there was nothing nefarious going on, why not release that video? Don't say it's to protect her. We can redact her. Don't even say it's to protect Kyle from embarrassment. We can redact him too. I just want to see who the officers were. I just want to see what was said. Does Kyle Shanahan's story match his story today? Why did the police decide to mark down a violation of him holding a cell phone if the cell phone apparently wasn't even in his hand at the time of the accident? It was in the back seat, we learned today. Someone says, it's possible Kyle paid off the victim so that he wasn't listed as fault. Now that it's blown up, he got scared and copped to it. That sounds plausible to me. Can't rule that out considering how weird this situation has been. Somebody said, the PD has close ties with the Niners. They sure do. The 49ers literally pay them. They're literally on the 49ers payroll. They do security for 49ers events. I uncovered city council documents showing that. That is a fact. The 49ers have paid Palo Alto PD. It's an indisputable fact. Not only that, but two of the 49ers head of securities are long-time law enforcement officers in the Bay Area. Keep that in mind. Man, the comments are coming quick. I love you guys. Somebody said, that's wild, man. Oh, Laura chiming in. I want to know why there's so many injuries. A 20-mile-per-hour impact. And this gets into the press conference today, which is fascinating. And I promise we're going to get to that in a couple minutes, but we got more comments here. Yeah, 2 comments about the injuries. How did his face get so injured while he was looking backwards for the phone? Spoiler alert, we're going to talk a lot about that coming up. Derek says this story won't stop until we get a full explanation as to why it was withheld for 10 days, 11 days actually, Derek, but I agree with you completely. Stories shouldn't just go away because of the passage of time. Mike Florio said that, and I agree. Stories should go away when we have answers. And Kyle Shanahan's press conference today left us with more questions than answers. I was dumbfounded by what I heard at the press conference, and I'll explain why here in a minute. Kenny says, it's none of our business. Of course it is, Kenny. You think the people in Palo Alto don't deserve to have a police department that's not corrupt? And I'm not saying for sure that the police department is corrupt, but it might be, and this is looking shady. Shouldn't they have the peace of mind with thousands of people questioning Palo Alto Police Department's motives right now and what happened that day, combined with Palo Alto PD's shady history, encrypting radio footage so that news organizations can't listen in their newsrooms live? How about this one? Let me pull this one up for you, Kenny. Let's see what we got here for you, Kenny. How about this one? Palo Alto cops frequently fail to activate body cameras. How about when the law requires that they do release body cam footage, they just don't. They literally break the law. This is a police department breaking the law. This isn't me saying this. Go ahead and Google it yourself. In some cases, they have 45 days to release body cam footage. They just don't. In the dog bite incident, in the incident with the guy in his garage that had the security camera going, I posted that video, by the way. The Palo Alto PD cop slams his head into the windshield while he's handcuffed. And then he says, I'm bleeding. And the cop says, yeah, you're going to be bleeding a lot more. That's all on camera. The Palo Alto Police Department has a history of not being transparent. They have a history of corruption. That incident that I just told you about with the security footage from the garage, an independent auditor called it a cover-up. This is not Tony Farmer's words. This is the words of the people who are assigned to look into it. Palo Alto PD's independent auditors called it a cover-up. So this isn't a stretch that there might be a cover-up with this Kyle Shanahan situation. This police department a few years ago had a literal cover-up. It's not some grand conspiracy that's hard to believe. You guys got me off on a tangent. We still haven't gotten to the damn press conference today, which is really the meat and potatoes of this. Somebody says, most people have been in car accidents, and this doesn't mean Kyle's a bad person. I agree, but it's fair to say this story doesn't up. I would have to agree there as well. Somebody says, why is Kyle Shanahan being treated with kid gloves? If a player gets into a wreck, we know majority, if not all the details, would be out within hours. Cole, that's a great point. I'd say, by the way, Dante Whitner made this point yesterday too, by the way. Check out that clip if you haven't seen it already. I posted it. It's a great point. Players and coaches are treated very differently as our owners, as we've seen in a couple situations as well. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But I would say this, what you're talking about, Cole, is just another example of preferential treatment for Kyle Shanahan. Not only did he not get a citation, even though he was apparently fishing for his phone in the back seat. By the way, why'd you need your phone so bad, Kyle, if you weren't going to be texting and driving? Can't you just wait till you park? But Cole, you said he was treated with kid gloves. Not only was this preferential treatment because he didn't get a citation while he was fishing for the phone in the backseat and hit a 21-year-old female driver head on, but I would argue it's also preferential treatment that the police didn't leak this story. You think if this was Luke Gifford, 49ers linebacker? You think if this was Mike Evans, we wouldn't have heard about this story sooner? We see it all the time. Police departments, paramedics, they call up TMZ with a story, with a photo, with whatever. They get paid. That didn't happen in this case. Preferential treatment for Kyle Shanahan when you compare it, as you said, to a player. Somebody said taxpayers have the right to all this information. You know, Austin, I would argue you're absolutely right, especially when we have potential police corruption involved. But how about the fact that taxpayers helped pay for the 49ers stadium, didn't they? Now the 49ers head coach hits a member of the public head on, and you're going to withhold that footage, even though there's a chorus of people speaking up and now concerned about police corruption at the Palo Alto Police Department because of their history of corruption, because of their history of a lack of transparency. These aren't, it is my opinion, guys, but I'm not just sharing my opinions. Palo Alto Police Department was found to have engaged in a cover-up that nobody knew about for a year, by the way. These things sometimes come out slowly, and perhaps that's why there's so many voices on Twitter saying, stop covering this, stop looking into this. Sometimes it takes some time for these things to simmer up. People are just relentless on Kenny. Kenny 49ers, you're getting hammered in the comments right now, bro. You might just want to go home. You're outnumbered here, buddy. Rick says, why can't I see the comments? Did you see my comments? Rick, I see this one, buddy. You're on the screen right now. By the way, if you're watching this on Twitter, that's cool. But if you head on over to YouTube, that is how you guys can chime in. This is what we're going to be doing Monday night as well when we've got Nikki on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, look at this comment. J-Tank says, imagine if this were Brandon Ayuk. You know, in some ways, Brandon Ayuk has gotten more criticism and more shit from people online for driving well over the speed limit and videotaping it than Kyle Shanahan got for hitting a woman head on, supposedly at 20 miles per hour. Okay. In her lane and being silent about it for 11 days. Listen, guys, I'm not a Brandon Ayuk apologist. I don't know if there's anybody on Twitter who's been more critical of Brandon Ayuk than me, but that's a good point. You think if Brandon Ayuk was involved, Adam Schefter would have kept quiet for 11 days? Are you out of your mind? You think if Brandon Ayuk was involved in this situation, Palo Alto PD officers wouldn't have been calling TMZ? You think if Brandon Ayuk was involved in this situation, the 21-year-old would have been marked at fault in the government database? Ooh, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Are we any closer to knowing who the 21-year-old driver was? Laura, I'm working on it. That's all I can say. I'm working on it. Let's see some other comments here. The young woman doesn't want to be put into the public light. Can't blame her. That might be true, but is it because of an NDA? Is she just not interested in being a part of this story? Or has she signed an NDA through the 49ers, through Kyle, and perhaps she literally can't talk about it? I'm not sure. More comments rolling in. This is a big one. We're going to talk about this. Why is the autopilot being brought up right now? Remind me. If I don't get to that, remind me to, because that is absolutely crucial. Justin says, coaches have always gotten preferential treatment for some reason. Yeah, I would agree. We see it with the Mike Vrabel situation. The NFL isn't even going to look into that. There's coach of the year implications. There's tampering implications with multiple players. Beat writers are getting screwed over because the deck is stacked against them. The NFL isn't even going to look into that. You got the Morgan Moses deleted tweet that shows that without a doubt, the Patriots must have been tampering. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's in the articles tab on my X page. The NFL isn't even going to look into that. Preferential treatment for Mike Vrabel. Rick says, I won't repeat that one. Worst says, ding, ding, ding. I'm not sure what you were saying ding, ding, ding to, but I appreciate it. The story is inconsistent. It keeps changing. All right, let's jump into it now. How's the story changing? Exhibit 1. how the story's changing. What were we originally told? This is right from the Chronicle, right from the mainstream news. The cell phone fell between the seats. Okay? The cell phone fell between the seats. I'm going to go ahead and play footage of what Kyle Shanahan said today. I apologize. I'm in the footage because this is audio that I put on Twitter earlier, but bear with me here. Cell phone was between the seats. Remember, guys, between the seats. Kyle Shanahan, you are my favorite head coach. I want to stop investigating this story. All you got to do is take responsibility and release the footage, and I will stop investigating this story. Just take responsibility.
You know, I think everyone's done to a degree what I've done, but you know, dropping a phone and falling all the way to my back seat where I have to fully take my eyes off the road, you know, it's something that I normally wouldn't do. I've had autopilot for 9 years, so I'm pretty comfortable with it, and you know, who knows what happened when I turned around, whether it malfunctioned or whether I knocked it off. That's something I don't know yet, but regardless,
Kyle,
it is always your fault.
Kyle,
autopilot or not, you can't take your eyes off the road.
Kyle, don't blame Tesla.
Turn it over to
All right, couple things here, guys. There's so many questions from that one little clip. Back seat. I thought it was between the seats. The cell phone was originally between the seats. Now it's in the back seat. Now the story's changed. Why has the story changed? Remember when I posted the crash test footage from the same exact car that Kyle was driving? Watch this crash test footage closely. Notice how the head of the driver does not lurch forward until the airbag is deployed. Okay? If he was just fishing between the seats, he would look like this. Okay? If he was fishing in the back seat, he'd look more like this. It's a huge difference. Watch this crash test footage. One more time. The airbag deploys before his face hits it. Before the face even moved, the airbag deploys. By the way, this is at 35 miles per hour. We're told he was traveling 20, supposedly. We don't know the speed of the other driver. This should be a somewhat realistic representation of what took place in the car. Watch the head not lurch forward until the airbag deploys. The head doesn't lurch forward until the airbag deploys, guys. I believe that when I put that footage out and when people started talking about this, and pointing out that the injuries aren't consistent and don't make sense with a 20-mile-per-hour crash, I think it created the need to change the story. And we got the new story today. But the problem is that story makes even less sense. Because as one of our other commenters pointed out, if Kyle was fishing in the back seat like this, how did the garage door opener hit his eye? Remember, we were told that there was a garage door opener on the visor? How did it hit him in the eye when he's like this? You're going to listen to Kyle's words one more time. He literally says he was turned around. Did the garage door opener fly off the back windshield and come back? Is this some magic bullet shit? I thought the injuries to your face were from the airbag and from the garage door opener and the visor. You just said you were turned around. I'm going to play it again. Kyle Shanahan, you are my favorite head coach. I want to stop investigating this story. All you got to do is take responsibility and release the footage, and I will stop investigating this story. Just take responsibility.
You know, I think everyone's done to a degree what I've done, but dropping a phone and falling all the way to my back seat to where I have to fully take my eyes off the road. It's something that I normally wouldn't do. I've had autopilot for 9 years, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. And, who knows what happened when I turned around, whether it malfunctioned or whether I knocked it off. That's something I don't know yet. But
who knows what happened when I turned around? Kyle, when you turned around, your back would have. How are you getting the facial injuries? How are other people not asking this question? And here's the real question that needs to be asked. Why was there no mention of the autopilot after the first meeting with beat writers? Remember Kyle Shanahan called the beat writers into his office? He had a lengthy conversation with them. Several beat writers have told us about that conversation ad nauseum. Not once did a single beat writer mention autopilot. Explain that to me. Autopilot was not mentioned before. All of a sudden, autopilot is mentioned. Before, the phone was between the seats. Now the phone is behind the seats. Before, Kyle Shanahan was crying and very guilty. That was me inferring. He probably, I assume, felt guilty. I shouldn't put words in his mouth because he was so upset and distraught, according to the beat writers. Now we're hearing, listen to this. This is the third aspect of the story that's changed. All right, I actually didn't hear that. You guys will have to tell me in the comments if you heard that or not. I didn't hear it in my ears. I fear that you guys may not have heard that too. Basically, what Kyle says is, I wasn't really that guilty, like feeling that guilty about it. It was an accident. All right, people are saying he couldn't hear. Okay. So I don't know why you couldn't hear that video, but I promise you, and the full thing is on YouTube. Grant Crone posted it to his YouTube, by the way. So the full thing is on there. And I promise you, I'm paraphrasing. I might not have the words exactly right, but Kyle Shanahan essentially says, I don't feel that guilty about this. It was an accident. Accidents happen. But originally you were crying in your office. How do you go from crying in your office to not feeling guilty? How do you go from the cell phone was between the seats to the cell phone was behind the seats? How do you go from the garage door opener hit you in the eye to I was turned around? This story keeps changing. And I just want to tell you guys that typically, you know this already. When stories change this many times, it's not typically because we got the real version the first time. Typically, when stories change, it's because there's some shenanigans going on. Somebody said, I worked in downtown PA, I assume it's Pennsylvania, for 8 years plus, crossed that intersection. Oh, Palo Alto, my bad, of course. For 8 years plus, crossed that intersection every day to catch the Caltrain. Did not see one accident. Nice little piece of context from boots on the ground over there. I appreciate it. Somebody says, what the team hides from their fans and from their head coach survived a serious accident. The whole thing has been off from the beginning. Yes. When they first heard this story, who didn't go, that's weird? Why am I hearing about this 11 days later, right before training camp? And by the way, if Kyle's injuries had healed a little faster, would we have even known about this at all? If Kyle Shanahan's injuries had healed faster, remember he apparently got plastic surgery done. So it's just a matter of his hand. You can brush that off as anything, right? The concussion symptoms he's still having. If he had healed quicker, we may not have even known what happened at all. Austin says, I have to take my eyes off the road. I would never voluntarily be a passenger in his car. Yeah. Kenny continues to get just destroyed in the comments. But hey, he's sticking around. Good for him. So talking about an airbag. Somebody says, my friends and I once launched a fridge 30 feet in the air with an airbag, a refrigerator. Oh my goodness. Wow. See, there's a lot of comments about substances being involved. I think a lot of that probably comes with, an assistant coach on the 49ers staff who has been on video doing cocaine before. It's not the only former Kyle Shanahan staff member who has been involved in drugs. I don't think it's fair to say those things because we don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence that there was alcohol involved. We don't have any evidence that there was drugs involved. But the body cam footage, if those things were involved, we would see a slurred speech from Kyle Shanahan, just for instance, a stumbling Kyle Shanahan. Why will Palo Alto PD and the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan all not give us that body cam footage? It's 3 different entities, right? Kyle could decide to do it on his own and say, F you 49ers, I'm doing my own thing. The 49ers could decide to do it if they felt it was right, even if Kyle didn't want to. And Palo Alto Police Department certainly could. All 3 entities are in lockstep. Jeremy Jones says, nah, sorry. You're not going to see that accident report, beat writers. You know what, guys? They could have shown the accident report redacted. Grab a fucking Sharpie, redact it, cross out her name. You know how easy that would have been? The most important thing on that accident report is Kyle Shanahan supposedly being listed at fault, because Kyle has verbally told us that he was listed at fault. Let me tell you something, guys. If we get that accident report, and I believe we will, if we get that accident report and Kyle Shanahan is not listed at fault, this has the potential to be the NFL story of the year. Because it will mean there absolutely was a cover-up, without a doubt. Because Kyle said himself, accident report said I was at fault. So if we get an accident report that says he wasn't at fault, it's clearly a cover-up at that point. A cover-up just like Palo Alto PD had a couple years ago. Not my words. That's the words of the auditor who said that they were involved in a cover-up after smashing a man's face into a windshield while he was handcuffed. That accident report's going to be crucial, and I think we're going to get it. I can't tell you guys how I think I'm going to get it, but I've got some tools in my toolbox, and I will be working my ass off to get it, and nothing's going to stop me. If the San Francisco 49ers called me tomorrow and offered me $500,000, I'd say, fuck you. We're going to get this report. It's too important because the people in Palo Alto should sleep well at night knowing that their police department is not involved in any sort of cover-up. And guys, I'm not sitting here telling you that they 100% were. I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm certain the Palo Alto Police Department was involved in a cover-up. I'm saying we should look into it. I'm saying we should be curious. I'm saying there's a lot of smoke here. I'm saying with Palo Alto PD's history of not being transparent and encrypting their radios and not turning their body cam footage on over and over and over, not releasing this body cam footage to us, the 11 days of silence, the preferential treatment apparently for Kyle Shanahan, the clerical error. I'm saying there's enough there to at least be curious and look into it. Release the footage so we can all find out. Why isn't Kyle Shanahan on board with releasing the footage? He did nothing. He didn't do much wrong. He doesn't even feel that guilty, he says. Right? It's just an accident. Accidents happen. Kyle, if it was just an accident, release the Tesla footage, release your accident report, or release the body cam footage, all of which you have access to, bud, all of which you can redact. Coaches preach to players that they can't be a distraction for their team. Kyle Shanahan is actively being a distraction for his team. This team's going to be on a flight to Australia in a couple weeks. Don't be surprised if he gets questions from the Australian media about this accident. As we've seen from the Rossini and Vrabel story, the media outside the U.S. is a lot more awake. They don't cower to organizations like the 49ers, like the NFL. International media is tough. They ask the kinds of tough questions that I've been asking. Kyle Shanahan has already let this story become a distraction because his story has changed. His story has changed over and over. His story changed a couple hours ago, guys. I'm going to say it again. Originally, we were told the cell phone was between the seats. Originally, we were told nothing about autopilot. Now, some of you may say, yeah, Tony, but the writers in the room said that there were on the record and off the record conversations. So maybe he talked to them off the record about autopilot. I suppose that's possible. But why would that need to be off the record, if so? Right? If this was just an accident, Kyle, why would you need to go off the record to discuss the autopilot? And if you didn't go off the record to discuss the autopilot, why didn't you mention the autopilot at all with the beat writers? Guys, this is weird. How do you have one version of the story that doesn't mention autopilot at all? And then the version that we got today was, yeah, I've been using autopilot for 9 years. Car was on autopilot, turned around to get the car to the back seat. 3 different aspects of this story have changed. If it was just one aspect, I'd be able to look past it. But the location of the cell phone has changed between the seats. This wasn't just one outlet. They all said between the seats because that's what Kyle told them. Kyle's story has changed. Now, why would Kyle's story change? Like I said before, it could be that I released. It could be because people were asking questions saying, the injuries don't quite match up. It could also be because the phone was in the back seat and maybe Kyle Shanahan was in the back seat with the phone. Just a theory. Has this crossed your mind yet? Is it possible that Kyle Shanahan was in the back seat with the phone and someone saw him come out of the back seat after the accident? And now he needs an excuse for why he was seen coming out of the back seat, either by the victim, perhaps by a camera, perhaps by another witness. I was going in the back seat to get my phone. Maybe that's why the story changed today. Because the phone was between the seats and you wouldn't need to go in the back seat to get a phone that was between the seats, would you? So today's version that we got is that the phone was in the back seat, even though multiple media outlets reported previously it fell between the seats. I'm going to recap this one more time because it looks like a lot of people just tuned in. The Kyle Shanahan story has changed. 3 key aspects appear to have changed from my perspective. The cell phone was between the seats. Story number 1. Story number 2, the cell phone was behind the seats. Story number 1, Kyle Shanahan's very upset. Apparently, we can deduce feeling guilty. We hear today from Kyle, not so guilty. Story number 1, the visor had a garage clicker on it. That garage clicker is what injured Kyle Shanahan's eye. Story number 2, Kyle was turned around. His words, not mine. Kyle was turned around trying to get that phone. How would the garage clicker damage his eye in any way if Kyle was turned around? Autopilot. No mention of autopilot in the first story. Updated story. Kyle actually says that the autopilot may have malfunctioned. I don't believe we're almost an hour into this stream, and I haven't mentioned that yet. Kyle is like, maybe it's the Tesla's fault. Have you seen Elon Musk on Twitter, guys? When people blame Tesla for things? Have you seen how he responds? I'm going to leave it at that. Kyle shouldn't have said that. Kyle should not have said that, guys. to me, and this is just my opinion, it seemed like a man who didn't want to take full accountability. It reminded me a lot of Mike Vrabel's press conferences, where he wouldn't say, yes, guys, I got a little too close with Diana Rossini. He didn't say that. He said, I got some things I need to apologize for. I'm paraphrasing. He said something to that extent. It was like a half accountability, right? I think that's what Kyle Shanahan did today. Excuse me. It was half accountability. I turned around. I don't know what happened. Could have been me. Also could have been the car. What are the chances of that car malfunctioning at the exact moment that you turn around? Come on. Come on. Oh, we'll get that off the screen. Sometimes we get inappropriate comments and I don't see them in time. He seems to forget a lot in critical moments. Oh, man, that's a low blow. That's a low blow. Justin says 0 chance. This story is not making sense to a lot of people, guys. By the way, if you're just tuning in, do me a favor. Hit that like, hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching on YouTube especially, it's important. But also, we got a change.org petition. Google right now, change, open up another window. You can come back and listen to this later. I'll be here. It's a live record, but you can listen to it later. Change.org. Google Kyle Shanahan, change.org. Video. You'll find the petition. It'll take you a couple minutes. Please sign that petition because that sends a signal to City Council. That sends a signal to the DA. That sends a signal to Palo Alto PD. Someone says, big question, why is Kyle lying? What is he hiding? I smell Tiger Woods here. Natalia says, hi, Tony. Always good to see you. Natalia, always good to see you as well. I appreciate you tuning in. I want to encourage you guys to do something. We've built a really cool community here. I would argue that my followers are a little bit more critical thinkers than the average people on X. You guys are a little more conscious. So if you want to be followed by other people on X who are also like-minded, who get it, go ahead and drop your Twitter handle down in the comments. And I encourage you guys to follow each other. We'll build this community up. Remember, I've got a Substack that's completely free. If you guys do want to pay for the upgraded version, you can, but it's not necessary at all. We got a little over 400 members now on that Substack, completely free. The link is in my Twitter bio. Join that Substack community. I do post articles there that you can't find on X. 2 weeks before my Twitter article about the lavish lifestyle of Matt Miller, that was up on Substack. I had another article on Substack. You guys ready for this? I don't mean to brag, but sometimes I posted this 13 days ago. Was Kyle Shanahan, this was on my Substack. This is why you guys need to go over there. Was Kyle Shanahan using his Tesla's self-driving mode during his recent car accident? The 49ers coach admitted fault today, but past comments about his Tesla autopilot feature have been unearthed and raise additional questions. I found footage from 2021 of Kyle talking about using his auto drive feature. Now, today, that's moot and not really a big deal because he admitted it himself. But I told you about this 13 days ago. And when I first said this, the comments on X were not very pleasant. I was getting called all sorts of names. Schizophrenic, crazy, insane, lives in his parents' basement, grifting, all this stuff. Well, it turns out what I wrote 13 days ago is the story today. You can find that on my Substack. A lot of good stuff over there. I also have an article on the Substack about the history of Jeremy Jones, who, by the way, I happened to call Jeremy Johnson by accident a couple times. Hopefully, I haven't done that on this stream. Jeremy Jones, 49ers head of security. A little bit more information about his background. And another member of the 49ers security staff, not just him, who has a long history of having ties to the 49ers and also to local law enforcement. We got a couple people dropping their handles as recommended. Go ahead and give Glenn a follow. Glenn Graves, 1991. Jim is one of my favorites, by the way. Jim Longo, 1963. Jim is a history buff. He'll talk to you about sports. He'll talk to you about the Revolutionary War and Benedict Arnold. Jim is an awesome follow. One of the nicest people on Twitter. I mean that. One of the nicest humans on earth would be Jim Longo. Give Jim Longo 1963 a follow. You guys know I love Laura. Go ahead and give her a follow as well. Somebody says Palo Alto PD and Kyle's cover-up failed regarding the crash, so of course he came clean. That sounds plausible to me. Austin chimes in and says that Matt Miller article was incredible. Thank you. I appreciate it. That took me a while to write. I got photos from the Facebook page of his ex-wife and kind of piecemealed that together. That took a while to write, and it means a lot that you appreciate it. Someone says, I want to feel sympathy for Kyle as a man, but those... Hey, I was at that second Chiefs Super Bowl. That's my Twitter profile photo and my YouTube profile photo. I was at that second one. That was tough. I don't want to be too hard on Kyle for the Super Bowls. Accidents happen. Somebody says, this is a great question. Why does the accident matter to you? Fantastic question. And I'm going to assume that you're not being a troll and this is just coming from a genuine place. So I'm going to answer you in a respectful manner. The reason that it's important to me is because the people in Palo Alto deserve to sleep at night. They deserve to be able to put their head on the pillow knowing that their police department is not corrupt. And if there is even a 10% chance, even a 5% chance that there is a cover-up here, they deserve to know. This has now become a police corruption issue. And before you say, Tony, you're being a conspiracy theorist, Tony, that's a stretch. No, because as I said at the beginning of the show, Palo Alto PD had a cover-up recently. Not in my words, in the words of the auditor. This is a police department that has made a history of decisions showing that they disregard transparency. They don't value, in my opinion, transparency. They've shown us that over and over. What's that quote about, like, people show you who they are? Organizations show you who they are too. Palo Alto PD is not a transparent organization. You followed up. Appreciate the answer. I appreciate you, man. See, that's what a civil dialogue's all about. Why do we got to be at each other's throats on X? You disagree with someone. Oh, you must be a Trump supporter. You must be a Biden supporter. Why can't we just be civil? That was a nice little civil dialogue. He asked me why it matters. I told him why it matters. He says he's okay with that. I love that. We should have a little bit more of that civil dialogue stuff too. Yeah, the corruption, it's a concern. And I'm going to say it again, guys. I'm not saying that I'm 100% sure there was corruption, but it's looking like there might have been. And those people in that community deserve to know. This isn't something that happened 10 years ago. Those police officers that were on the scene of Kyle's incident still work for the police department. We need to know if they were acting in a corrupt manner or not. I'm going to play you guys a clip now, and I hope some of you who are listening and watching right now haven't seen this, because it's mind-blowing. This is absolutely mind-blowing. This is a clip that came out. I've been talking a lot about it, so you might have seen it. This is a clip that came out a week ago. This is Emmanuel Acho. He used to play for the Giants, the Eagles, and the Browns. He says he won't tell us what team he was on when this happened. But just listen to this shit, guys. Listen to this.
Boom. Hit him. I'm like, oh. Hit. I'm headed to practice, right? So all my teammates going to have to drive by me. I hit one of our security people. He says, Acho, when the cop shows up, send the cop away. I'm going to send you another cop. And that other cop is going to say, it wasn't your fault. It was their fault. I was like, yo. I was like, wait, they do that?
If you're seeing that clip for the first time, I'd love to hear your reaction to that. An NFL player calls the head of security for the team he was working for. And the head of security says, I'm going to send you a new cop. And that new cop is going to say it was their fault. So not only is this head of security getting Emmanuel Acho out of trouble, he's pinning it on an innocent person. Does this not make you angry? This could have been any of us. Does that cop still work for that police department? Does that head of security still have a job with the NFL? Listen to what Emmanuel Acho just said. I'm not going to play it again. You heard it. But listen to his words. He said that a head of security collaborated with the police to blame an innocent person for an accident. In the Kyle Shanahan case, we've got a government database that says Kyle Shanahan wasn't at fault. And we're told that was a clerical error. I don't believe that it was a clerical error until I see that accident report that also supposedly will say Kyle was at fault. There's just too many weird things with this case, guys. We had the 11 days of silence. I'm going to say what I said before about Adam Schefter. Longtime friend of Kyle Shanahan's. Kyle apparently, you believe this? Kyle calls Adam Schefter up, says, I was involved in an accident. Do you think Adam Schefter, a reporter and friend of Kyle's, might ask, were you at fault? What happened? We're supposed to believe that conversation didn't take place. Adam Schefter had no idea who was at fault when he made his post. What's more realistic and plausible? That Adam Schefter didn't know who was at fault, even though he talked to his friend Kyle Shanahan, or Adam Schefter withheld that from the public. This is what a cover-up is, guys. When reporters, media companies, police have information and they don't share it with the public in a coordinated fashion. We have Adam Schefter reporting this a minute after the 49ers. These are the elements of a cover-up. And this police department has already been found to have engaged in a cover-up pretty darn recently. That report came out in 2024, where the auditor said Palo Alto Police Department was involved in a cover-up. And the 49ers head of security, Jeremy Jones, tells beat writers, not going to give you guys the accident report that would prove that our story's true. You're going to have to go to Palo Alto PD for that. Wouldn't Jeremy know that Palo Alto PD couldn't give that up? He's been in law enforcement for 16 years. Jeremy Jones stonewalled the 49ers beat writers. Jeremy Jones, who worked for Lori Smith for about 13 or 14 years and went up the ranks of that sheriff's office underneath the woman who was found guilty of corruption and misconduct. That's an interesting story, guys. I can't wait to dig more into that. It was like a pay-for-play type scenario where there were like concealed carry permits, and she was dishing them out to people who were paying, apparently. Super corrupt. Pay-for-play is like some of the most, in my opinion, some of the worst corruption that you can have out there because it benefits the rich, it shits on the poor people. It's terrible. That's who Jeremy Jones learned from. We got some more comments rolling in from you guys. If it's just an accident, why so much cover-up? Kevin, if it's just an accident, why the 11 days of silence? If it's just an accident, why is the story changed 3 times? If it's just an accident, why doesn't Kyle Shanahan show us the body cam footage? If it's just an accident, why did Jeremy Jones not let the beat writers see the accident report? It's starting to look like, to me, it wasn't just an accident. Why does nothing they've done or said make sense? Austin says possible bribery happening here. Well, you saw in the Emmanuel Acho footage potential bribery. I mean, how many charges? Let's go back to that Emmanuel Acho thing for a second. How many charges is that? Like I'm not a legal expert, but potential insurance fraud, right? This poor person has probably had their insurance rates raised because of this. Bribery, conspiracy. Could this be a RICO situation? If it's found that the NFL, these teams are intentionally hiring fixers so that they can protect their profits. Not a legal expert, but I'd ask someone who is to chime in on that. That Emmanuel Acho thing is a major deal. And I'm in contact with all 3 police departments that it might have happened at. How could an honest police department not want to look into that? Shouldn't an honest police department, it's like 10, 11 years ago, guys, this officer could very well still be working for them. Shouldn't they want to know if an officer deliberately pinned an accident on an innocent person because an NFL security guy told him to? This Acho thing, I don't mean to go off subject because we're talking about Shanahan. There is some overlap here, like on a Venn diagram. But this Acho thing, more people should be talking about it. It is a huge story, and I can't quite figure out why more people aren't interested in it. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. The implications are huge. Somebody said, you just answered your question, Tony. Police departments are all corrupt. I think there's still some good ones out there. I do. The NFL is deep. We need the CIA. Call the FBI. Man. Somebody said Mountain View and Palo Alto to help staff 49ers games. Absolutely. The 49ers pay Palo Alto Police Department. That's part of their arrangements. And by the way, some of these officers, do you know how much Jeremy Jones? Let's do this. Take a guess. Jeremy Jones' last couple years at Palo Alto PD, what do you think his salary was? I'm going to sit back and let some of these answers roll in. Someone's chiming in. Money. Any guesses? Go ahead and shoot me a comment. How much money do you think Jeremy Jones made with Palo Alto PD? Good guess here from Austin. Double it. Now, his last year with Palo Alto PD was right around there because he left mid-year. His last full year with Palo Alto PD, he was making over $500,000 in salary, benefits, overtime, all that combined. There's a public database for the state of California. How much was the 49ers paying him? Palo Alto PD, a public government organization, was paying him 500 G's. How much were the 49ers paying him? Fans should want a reporter to care. Thank you. I'm an Eagles fan. We're tough on reporters because we demand accountability from the individuals in positions of power for our teams. It kills corruption. Now, Jimbo, you like me today because I'm holding the 49ers accountable. But what if I find out Big Dom was the guy in the Eagles organization who made that call, who talked to Emmanuel Acho and got that cop over there? What if Big Dom finds himself in a situation? I'm curious if you're still going to love me. I hope the answer is yes. But what I've noticed is some of the Eagles fans loved my coverage when I was talking about Rossini and Vrabel because of the A.J. Brown implications. But then when I started talking about the Bryce Harper FanDuel thing, a lot of people weren't happy with me then. So I hope you can be consistent no matter what story I'm looking at. Justin says Big Dom sounds likely. Well, it can only be 3 teams. The Emmanuel Acho situation can only be the Browns, the Giants, and the Eagles. He was only with the Giants for 30-something days. So probability-wise, it's less likely that it's the Giants. The Browns look at the off-ramps by the Browns practice facility. There are none. And Acho says in his story, that he was getting off the off-ramp and all his teammates were going to be passing him on their way to practice. Well, if the off-ramp was far away, like it would have to be in Cleveland, his teammates wouldn't be passing him in practice. So in my opinion, the most likely answer is that did happen with the Eagles. And yes, Big Dom was working with the Eagles at that time. Somebody says, you're crucifying everybody over a traffic ticket. I disagree. I couldn't disagree more. I'm asking questions. I'm requesting public records. And I'm encouraging people to think critically about this. Somebody says, if they continue to cover everything up, they will continue to get crucified. You know, a lot of people come and say, Tony, Kyle Shanahan doesn't have to release it. It's private. You're absolutely right. Kyle Shanahan has every right not to release those videos. And I have every right to criticize him for not releasing the videos. I have every right to point out the implications of not releasing the videos. Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers have to know that the longer they go without releasing this information, the more questions are going to be asked. And that's what I find curious, is that even though they know they're going to take heat, they're still choosing to do it. They could end all of this right now. All the comments we see about substances being involved and all this speculation, the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan could end this. Palo Alto PD could end this. I'm sitting here saying maybe Palo Alto PD is corrupt. They could stop that conversation immediately by releasing this footage, but they're choosing not to. They're making a decision not to release this information. They're making a decision not to be transparent. Somebody says, just keep spitting facts. You're the perfect example of why independent journalism is the real journalist. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Someone says, Big Dom is definitely doing this. He's just really good at it. Somebody says, what difference would it make? I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Feel free to ask your question again with a little bit more detail. Kia says, this could become an even bigger distraction as the season goes on, especially if something leaks. Imagine that. Imagine that. Right before a Week 7 game, right before a Monday Night Football game, during a game, 3 days before a playoff game, body cam footage finally comes out because of legal pressure applied to the Palo Alto PD. They know this, guys. The 49ers and Kyle Shanahan know that this could get ugly. They know that this could get a lot worse if things get released mid-season, and they're still choosing not to release this stuff. To me, in my opinion, that suggests there's probably something big, huge that they're hiding. That's just my opinion. Based off of Palo Alto PD's history, which I've already gone into detail with you, based off the story changing, it's weird. YouTube hasn't shadow banned me. Malik thinks he's shadow banned on Twitter. I wouldn't doubt it. I have heard a lot of that going around. Someone's given Austin props for this comment right here. He said, happened on a public road with public employees regarding using equipment to record it paid by the public. And video is stored in cloud storage that is paid by the public. I would agree with you. We should have some footage by now. They did not let us see the footage, so I fired back. And I'm not sure if you guys can read this, but this is my response to Palo Alto PD after they told me they would not be providing me with the body cam footage. And by the way, I kicked TMZ's ass. Did you guys see that? Did you guys happen to notice that? TMZ, a full day after I said, hey, Palo Alto Police isn't releasing this, TMZ's like, oh, by the way, guys, Palo Alto Police won't release the body cam footage. This is what I sent to them. Well, this is actually what they sent back to me, and they quoted what I sent to them. It said, greetings, I've received your denial for my prior request for body cam footage and the accident report related to this case. I hope that you'll work with me in good faith as required by the law. And I cited the law that says, Palo Alto PD, you need to work with me in good faith. It's been 7 days. I haven't heard from them. I said, I'm now asking for a description of all records associated with the case pursuant to Vaughn versus Rosen. I'm particularly interested in the exact number of body cams recording during that accident. Why am I asking that question? Because Palo Alto PD has a history of not activating their body cams. So just because they denied the request for body cam footage doesn't mean body cam footage exists. This is me finding out whether there is body cam footage or not. If there's 2 body cams, we'll know that there were 2 officers on scene. The law requires them to share this information. The law requires them to act in good faith. Thus far, they have not done so. They said your request will be forwarded to the relevant departments. to locate the information you seek and determine if the volume have any cost associated with satisfying your request. You'll be contacted about the availability, blah, 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 blah. They don't say when they're going to get back to me. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to include? Just let the member of the public know when you're going to be hearing back from them. They don't include that. I'll keep you guys posted. It'll be on X. As soon as I get my response back from Palo Alto PD from this, you guys will be the first to hear. If you're just tuning in, 3 aspects of Kyle Shanahan's story changed today in his press conference. Originally, we were told nothing about an auto drive feature. There was not a whisper. Believe me, guys, I went back and I watched every single video of every single beat writer who was in the room. I read every single article. There was not a whisper about auto drive feature. Today, auto drive. We were originally told the cell phone was between the seats. Multiple news outlets. Now the cell phone is behind the seats. We were originally told that a garage door opener hit Kyle in the eye. Now we're told Kyle was completely turned around. The story has changed. I believe part of the reason the story has changed is because the injuries were not consistent, in my opinion, and with the opinion of most people out there in the comments here and the comments on Twitter, of a 20-mile-per-hour car accident. The story had to change, perhaps, in order to fit. We've got more comments rolling in. Always grinding. Hey, there's my podcast. Chime in. Appreciate you guys. When someone is traveling 20 miles per hour, the other person is traveling 25 in the opposite direction, the results can be heavy. Absolutely. That crash footage, by the way, that I just showed was from 35 miles per hour. We got good conversations going on here. Papa says, I understand the safety concern to the public, or if it was some kind of a felony or even a misdemeanor, but we're talking about a fender bender. How do we know it's just a fender bender, though, brother? That's what we're being told by the same people who didn't tell us about this incident for 11 days, by the same police department that has a history of corruption, by the same police department that has a history of covering things up, by the same police department where an officer smashed a man's head into the windshield while he was handcuffed. This is just what we're being told. We have a government database that says Kyle's not at fault. And we have Kyle say he is at fault. We're told that was a clerical error. They fixed the clerical error, and the government database still says 2 people were injured. Well, if there were only 2 drivers and supposedly nobody in the passenger seats, how could 2 people be injured if John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and the Palo Alto Police Department all says that there was only 1 injury to Kyle? Think about that. Nobody will answer that question. I'm asking it. Nobody's going to answer that question. It reminds me a lot of the Rossini Vrabel situation where it's like nobody will talk about the coach of the year thing until Aaron Rodgers does, right? Pro Football Talk did a little bit. But nobody else will talk about it, even though the questions are being asked, even though it's a really good, legitimate question. It takes someone like Aaron Rodgers to speak out. There may be NFL players, past or present, watching this stream right now. I've had a couple of them follow me recently on Twitter. You guys got to use your voice. I love what Dante Whitner said. I love what he said. Did you see the impact that Aaron Rodgers had when he said what he said? I'm not saying you need to go on Pat McAfee, but you guys got to stand up for yourselves. Players are getting screwed by coaches. One little tweet from a player does wonders for a story like this, and I encourage you guys to speak up. Strolling through these comments. Yep, this was the same question I asked. How do you know it was just a fender bender? We don't know that because we haven't seen the body cam footage. We haven't seen the accident report. You know, I've got people on Twitter who are critical of me for sharing information that they claim is hearsay. or they claim are rumors. Tony, you got no evidence. Well, Kyle Shanahan, the Palo Alto Police Department, and the 49ers also have no evidence. They're not showing us any evidence. They're not showing us body cam footage. They're not showing accident reports. They're not showing us Tesla footage. They're saying, just trust us. This is what happened. Trust us. Yeah, I want to trust the police department that has a history of corruption. I want to trust the police department that has a major cover-up. Remember, not my words. That's the auditor's words. I want to trust the police department that tried to encrypt their police radios, which, by the way, would hinder the media from listening to their radios live. Do you understand how big of a deal that is? I used to work in a newsroom. I used to work in the sports section of a newsroom as a sports writer. You can hear the police scanner going on. And when you hear there's a big accident, there's a big fire, whatever, those reporters sprint out the door. That's how they know what's going on. The Palo Alto Police Department didn't want the media to be able to do that. They didn't want to be transparent. If you guys live in the Palo Alto area, I encourage you to contact your city council member. By the way, I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm curious how much the 49ers have donated to the members of city council. I'll be looking into that and I'll let you know the results. But contact the city council folks in Palo Alto and let them know this is on your mind. Let them know that you're following this story. Somebody said, there's some story with Kyle waiting for his wife, probably taken to a team doctor to avoid medical workers, going to the hospital. He went in an ambulance. We know that. I did think it was weird that he waited for his wife when he had such severe injuries. Broken ribs, you got to worry about the lungs being punctured. That doesn't seem like a good idea to wait for the wife there. Somebody said it took 11 days to find all witnesses, including police and healthcare workers, and pay them. Oh, man, I hope not. By the way, I did look on Nextdoor. You guys know the Nextdoor app. There's a freaking tiny little car accident. Someone's taking a picture of it somewhere. Of course, there's nothing on Nextdoor. These are the types of things that 11 days can afford you the ability to do, to clean things up. These are the things that fixers can do. And by the way, you guys heard me talk about Emmanuel Acho, right? Did you hear Marcellus Wiley? He told stories of his own. Marcellus Wiley says, I think this is almost a direct quote. This is just off memory. Marcellus Wiley says every NFL team has a fixer. You guys know what a fixer is, right? You seen the movie Michael Clayton with George Clooney? He's a fixer. He's the guy you call, somebody really well connected, somebody really smart that can make things go away, that can fix problems. If I had to guess who the fixer was on the 49ers staff, this is just a guess. This is just my opinion. If there is a fixer, that's probably the guy that used to work for the sheriff, Jeremy Jones. The sheriff that was found guilty of corruption after promoting Jeremy Jones many times. Jeremy Jones, the same guy who stonewalled 49ers beat writers and would not let them see the accident report. Guys, if Kyle Shanahan did nothing wrong and this was just an accident, how could that accident report hurt him? That's the million-dollar question. How could that accident report do any harm? Don't say it's going to harm the 21-year-old because she can be redacted. Why would that accident report not be shared? I can kind of see why maybe it wouldn't be shared by Palo Alto PD because they're citing some laws. Okay, fine. Why wouldn't Kyle Shanahan want to share that? It would literally clear his name from all these concerns, all this stuff people are saying that substances might have been involved. You haven't heard that from me, by the way. I'm actually correcting that and saying, there's no evidence of that every time someone says it. But other people are saying it. He could shut them up. He could shut me up from asking questions. Why won't they release the accident report if they've done nothing wrong? He says the accident report says he's at fault. And if the accident report says he's at fault, that means there was no conspiracy. How could they have tried to pin it on a 21-year-old if they put in the report Kyle was at fault? This accident report proves their story. So if Kyle Shanahan has done nothing wrong besides, turning around and taking his eyes off the road, if there's no conspiracy here, if there's no substances here, etc., why not just release the report? People will move on quicker. You can stop being a distraction to your team. And I can't imagine how it would make you look worse if your story's true. It already says you're at fault. So you can't be at double fault, Kyle. Why wouldn't you release it? It's not to protect the victim. She can be redacted. I'm telling you guys right now, Kyle is in major shit if we eventually get that accident report and it says she's at fault, because that would mean that the clerical error story was not accurate. You could understand how a government database could be wrong. Someone checked the wrong box. If that report says she was at fault, not only does it mean Palo Alto Police Department was trying to pin this on the 21-year-old woman, it means Kyle lied too. Because he told beat reporters, I don't know why they would say that. That's not what my accident report said. Hey, Kyle, can we see that report? Jeremy Jones steps in. No, you can't see it. No, you can't verify what Kyle just told you. I know I sound repetitive here, guys, but I'm going to ask it again because it's fucking important. Tell me one good reason why they would not release the accident report if Kyle's story's accurate and true. Why not? They could have released it off the record. They could have released it off the record to beat reporters. Hey, guys, no cell phones. You can't record this. Don't take a picture of what I'm about to show you, but see right here, and I'll put my thumb over her name. I'll redact it. See right here, it does say that I'm at fault. Why didn't they do that? Instead, Jeremy Jones, who worked for this lady, steps in, and Jeremy Jones says, no, you guys can't see that document. How about you take the document, you put your hands over everything, and just show them the part that says Kyle supposedly is at fault? I'm starting to think that document doesn't say Kyle Shanahan's at fault. And if that document says the 21-year-old woman is at fault, this will be the story of the NFL season. It will solidify it. That will prove that this was a cover-up, if there was a cover-up. And if not, and the report says Kyle Shanahan was at fault, it'll shut people like me up that are asking questions. The story would go away real quick with the body cam footage and the report being released. Why wouldn't the 49ers want this story to go away? You'd think they would want to, right? If this is just a run-of-the-mill accident. From the very beginning, when this story came out, it felt as if Palo Alto PD was kind of covering for Kyle Shanahan. That's just my opinion. Because we got quotes from Lieutenant Nicholas something with Palo Alto PD. And he's saying stuff like, no citations were given. We will not disclose who was at fault. Nicholas, you didn't mention that there was a violation. You marked, not you, sorry. Someone at your department marked on the paperwork that Kyle was holding or using a cell phone. You didn't mention that in the press. More preferential treatment, it appears, with Kyle Shanahan. By the way, that violation that is recorded in the government database, Kyle was holding or using his phone. I thought it was in the back seat. I thought he was reaching for it in the back seat. I'm not even sure if that fits. We got some more comments rolling in. Let me get to your comments. Where does it say 2 people got injured? Good question, Austin. I've posted screenshots from the government databases that say 2 people got injured. And Austin, this was after they corrected the government database to say Kyle Shanahan was actually at fault. It still says 2 people were injured. And I drew attention to that on Twitter. Somebody says it's Kyle's cover-up. He can release the redacted report anytime he wants. I agree. And here's the thing. If he's not going to release the report, then at least tell us why. It's kind of like with the Associated Press, with the Diana Rossini Coach of the Year stuff. Like, okay, you're not going to release the ballots. Weird, because you did last year, but okay. At least tell us why you're not going to release the ballots. Silence. Hey, Kyle. Hey, Jeremy Jones. If you're not going to release the report, at least tell us why. I think the only answer we got so far was to protect her identity. You can redact it, silly goose. So that reason's full of shit. Cross that off the list. Now why don't you want to release it? You know how quickly you can redact something with a Sharpie? Literally seconds. That is the worst excuse. Why won't the 49ers release that document? And just imagine this, guys. It's week 10. The 49ers are 7-2. I don't know if they've had a bye week yet. We're going into a Sunday night football game. Sorry, I don't have their schedule in front of me. These details might not be accurate, but work with me here. And that accident report comes out. And that accident report says Kyle Shanahan is not at fault. Holy crap. And we are talking about potential resignation is on the table at that point. We're talking about potential firing is on the table at that point. And the legal ramifications, I'm not a legal expert, but collaborating with corrupt police officers to get out of trouble? Holy crap. That would be the story of the NFL season. And I'm not certain that's where this is headed. And as a 49er fan, I hope to God it's not where it's headed. But the weird behavior is leading me to believe that might be where we're headed. By weird behavior, I mean, why does the story change? 3 different things in the story changed in the press conference today alone. Why was there 11 days of silence? Why did Adam Schefter coordinate with the 49ers on the release of this story? Why didn't Adam Schefter mention that Kyle Shanahan was at fault? Why did Tim Kawakami not dig more into this story when he found out about it supposedly the Thursday before the 49ers released it? There's so much weirdness with this story that it's now to the point where it actually seems plausible that there might be a cover-up. Like, usually when you're looking at situations like this, the cover-up is like back of your mind type stuff. Like, it's probably not that, but it could be. There's so much weirdness now. Kyle saying he doesn't feel that guilty about it after crying in his office. Let's hear that part again. That's the clip. That's the clip you guys can't hear the audio of. I must have uploaded it wrong. But definitely check that out. Definitely check that part out. If you're just tuning in, I want to play this one again because it's important. This is Emmanuel Acho saying that NFL security worked with a corrupt cop for the organization that he worked for to pin an accident on an innocent victim. Several years later, we have Kyle Shanahan in an accident in a government database, assigns fault to the person who was the victim in this situation. We're told that was a clerical error. Let's go ahead and listen to Emmanuel Acho.
Boom! Hit him. I'm like, ow. hit. I'm headed to practice, right? So all my teammates gonna have to drive by me. I hit one of our security people. He says, Acho, when the cop shows up, send the cop away. I'm going to send you another cop. And that other cop is going to say, it wasn't your fault. It was their fault. I was like, yo. I was like, wait, they do that?
By the way, you watch that footage, and LaShawn McCoy, who played for the Eagles and was a teammate of Emmanuel Acho's, sitting right next to him, he doesn't blink. You hear the other people, Hushmanzada and whoever the other person is that hosts that show, like, whoa. Shady McCoy doesn't blink. He is not surprised by that story at all. Not even a little. Now, maybe it's because Acho told him that story, or maybe it's because it happened when they were both members of the Philadelphia Eagles and LaShawn McCoy already heard that story. That's possible. But I thought his reaction was interesting, that he was not fazed by that at all. Emmanuel Acho's telling us, he's giving us insight into how things work in the NFL, at least for that team. People out there, call me tinfoil hat, call me a conspiracy theorist. Go ahead. I'm a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat. It's not that much of a stretch when you've got a guy saying on the record that NFL security worked with a corrupt cop to assign fault to someone that wasn't at fault at all. And surely their insurance rates went up. That's awful. You got a Palo Alto Police Department that has a recent cover-up. It's not that much of a stretch here, guys. Comments rolling in. What do we got? The Acho story is crazy. The other drivers, yes. Thank you. I'm glad you get it, Austin. It's like, just imagine this was you guys. We've probably all been in some degree of a car accident. Just imagine that you found out 12 or 13 years ago an accident that, I don't know if you got injuries or not, but an accident that occurred back then. You were assigned the blame, even though that officer knew it. And what planet are these guys on? Did you hear Acho say, the guy told me to send the cop away? Who among us has the ability to send cops away? Are you kidding me? I'm going to send you another cop, Acho says. Do you have cops on speed dial that you can call to instantly be on the scene of an accident to assign blame to somebody else? Are you kidding me? This is an insane level of corruption. Absolutely insane. And remember, Marcellus Wiley kind of backed this story up and said every NFL team has a fixer. So I'm going to believe Marcellus Wiley, an NFL veteran who played for a while, and I'm going to assume the 49ers have a fixer because that's what Marcellus Wiley said. So if the 49ers had a fixer, he'd probably be in the room with Kyle Shanahan when he met with the beat writers, wouldn't he? Who was in the room with Kyle Shanahan when he met with the beat writers? Jeremy Jones, who used to work for this sheriff. Why does Jeremy Jones even need to be there? If he's not fixing, why does Jeremy Jones even need to be in the room with Kyle Shanahan and the beat writers? What's his purpose? Well, we know today that his purpose, one of them at least, was to stonewall those beat writers when they asked for evidence. Kyle Shanahan says, I don't know why that government database that Grant Cohn wrote about says that. That's weird. My accident report doesn't say that. Oh, really? Can we see it? Jeremy Jones steps in. No. Can't see it. Sorry, guys. Absolutely not. Because, we gotta protect the victim. Did one of those beat writers in the room say, you fucking idiot, why don't you just redact it? Then nobody's being harmed. Did anybody question that? What's going on here? Kyle Shanahan is distraught, we're told. He's crying. He's upset. I assumed that was because of the guilt. He created this situation, which has impacted his team. He's created this situation, which has impacted this 21-year-old and her family. I assumed that was guilt, but we found out today, nah, he's not even really that guilty, he says. I wish I had that audio clip. Man, I had it prepared for you guys. I don't know why it's not playing, but you can find it yourself on YouTube. This is unbelievable. We got more comments rolling in. I appreciate your guys' support. Tired of all the media bias the Niners have in general. Sims, Schefter, Collinsworth, etc. Go to show why Shanny and Lynch always seem so arrogant despite not winning the chip. I mean, let's just talk for a second about how the media helped Kyle Shanahan in this situation. We got 11 days of media silence. Chris Sims doesn't say a word. Kyle Shanahan, by the way, has a tattoo of Chris Sims on his ankle, has a tattoo of his initials on his ankle. These guys are like this. That's loyalty. Did you guys know that, by the way? Go ahead and Google that. Look that up. Fact check me on that. Chris Sims is the first one who told us Kyle Shanahan was supposedly coming from a chiropractor. Chris Sims is silent. Adam Schefter's is silent for 11 days, then coordinates with the 49ers 1 minute later. Doesn't mention that Kyle was at fault. Then the government database says Kyle wasn't at fault. Oh, clerical error. Tim Kawakami finds out about this on Thursday. Tim is like, that's one of the weirdest ones of all. Because he admits he knew about this on Thursday, or some of it at least. He says it. It's public. Tim, you're a columnist. You didn't dig, bud? You weren't curious? You didn't want to look into this? Can you explain that to me, Tim? Why didn't you want to look into this situation? That's odd behavior for a columnist for the San Francisco 49ers, not to want to look into a situation where the 49ers head coach was involved in an accident where we now know he was at fault. Tim, that would have been a huge story. You would have been the first to break it. Why did you work against your own self-interest by not breaking that story, or by not at least even looking more into it? And were Tim Kawakami, Chris Sims, and Adam Schefter the only three who knew about this? Or was this sort of an open secret that other people knew about? Adam says they then upped the ante in negotiations with the NDA by saying Kyle Shanahan will come clean to take fault. Possible. Very possible. But you know what would prove you wrong, Austin? That accident report. That's an interesting theory you got there. That accident report could prove you wrong and could prove that there was nothing nefarious going on. 49ers won't release it. Jeremy Jones won't let them. The meeting with the reporters in the office was performative. Wow. I mean, when you got 11 days to plan a performance, you can probably make it pretty good. Anybody that works in theater can tell you that. Preparation's key. We live in times where the timeline for conspiracy theory to accepted fact is what? 6 to 12 months? Yeah, maybe that's why people want me to stop covering this story. Because it does take time. Somebody said the Patriots are so terrible this year. Have you guys thought about the fact that the NFL season opens with 2 games before Sunday? 1 game involving Mike Vrabel, who was involved in a massive scandal. The other game involving Kyle Shanahan, who's involved in a massive scandal. I wonder how the NFL feels about that. That's interesting. Was Kyle waiting for his wife or the fixer? Ooh, maybe both. Has a beat writer asked if Jeremy Jones was on the scene? Beat writers have had 2 opportunities to ask tough questions. In Kyle's office, when he was crying and upset. By the way, it's a little harder to ask tough questions when someone's crying and upset, isn't it? Maybe it was performative. I don't know. but they had the opportunity in the office and today during the press conference. The beat writers see Jeremy Jones around, by the way. They don't need a press conference for that. They could just, hey, Jeremy, I had a question. I was wondering. Has anybody asked if Jeremy Jones was on the scene of this accident? Was he there or not? Austin says they said the girl didn't get hurt, so there was either a passenger or there was a passenger that got hurt, or the government database was wrong again and there were multiple clerical errors. I'm open to that as well. Kia says, didn't they say the 21-year-old wasn't seriously injured? So maybe she just had minor injuries, but still wasn't listed as injured. That's plausible. That's definitely possible. Maybe she went to the hospital in an ambulance to get checked out just as a precautionary thing. So the report listed her as injured. Absolutely possible. Maybe that was another benefit to the 11 days, right? Because what if an injury pops up 6 days later, right? I don't think this 11-day thing was just about privacy, guys. That feels naive to me to suggest that 11 days was just, let's give Kyle a break. By the way, do players get that break when players are involved in accidents, arrests, whatever, things that they're at fault in? 3 different media personalities all made the decision not to make this information public. People at Palo Alto PD made the decision not to make this information public. I love the Tony Romo comparison. We do have to remember this took place in different states. Tony Romo's was in Texas. This is in California, so different state laws. But so I'm not going to compare them in terms of whether the body cam footage was released or not. But I am going to compare them in terms of the media reaction. Did you see Adam Schefter's photo of Tony Romo that he posted? It was the ugliest photo of Tony Romo I've ever seen. Putting Tony Romo on blast for this. The same guy who kept quiet for Kyle Shanahan for 11 days, didn't mention that he was at fault, and then coordinated with the San Francisco 49ers to release the story 1 minute after they did, without the details where he was at fault. That same guy puts Tony Romo on blast for his DUI. Holy cow. Unbelievable. Somebody says insiders care more about their sources and relationships than covering real stories. They let down the fans so much between Rossini, Vrabel, and Shanahan. I agree. I think fans are let down by these reporters. Ooh, got the race angle here. We've already talked about if this was a player instead of a coach. How about if this was a black coach? How about if this was a coach in their first year, white or black, that had a little less cachet, if you will, in the league? It definitely seems like Kyle's being treated pretty well. Somebody says, so Shanny and the Niners really think a 21-year-old is not going to say anything to her friends. Well, this is how NDAs work, and I don't know that an NDA was signed or not, but I'm speculating. If an NDA was signed, you're given a dollar amount that you're really happy with, and you're told if you open your mouth and do that, talk to your friends, we get the money back. So those things are effective. They work. That would be the motivation to have the NDA go out quickly. You know, that crossed my mind. I was like, why is Kyle waiting for his wife at the scene? And maybe she needed to help with the NDA. Kyle was concussed. He was out of it. Money would need to be coming from a joint bank account of Kyle and his wife's. So that is a possibility. Totally speculative on my part. Wasn't there. Don't have the facts. But that is a plausible, to me, in my opinion, reason why your wife might need to be on the scene, other than just supporting your husband. Because she could have just met him at the hospital, right? Somebody says funny because Romo probably going to get off. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that whole thing with I watched those videos of the sobriety test, and I'm like, man, when I'm sober, I'm not sure if I could follow those instructions and do those things. That's true. Innocent until proven guilty. I agree with you there, Kevin. Somebody says, on another note, I do believe this incident will change the way Shanahan coaches. It reminds me when Cap took a knee. New regime incoming. We'll see. We shall see. All right, guys, another reminder, if you can hit that thumbs up button, it helps me a ton, especially on YouTube if you're watching. If you're watching this on Twitter, if you can hit that heart button. And hell, scroll through my posts recently, hit a couple hearts, hit 2 or 3 hearts. All of that engagement helps me get my stories out there. It helps create this community. And we've got some eyes on us. Like I said, some former NFL players are following me. Brennan Fayoko, Thomas Morstead, former 49er, former New Orleans Saints player is following me now. Love that. So we're now seeing people like Linda Cohn and Mike Florio and Dan Patrick talk about this sort of stuff. We're seeing Aaron Rodgers talk about this sort of stuff. We're seeing Dante Whitner talk about access journalism. A lot of people are having these conversations now that we're having, and a lot of it's because of you, because of your comments. The retweets are especially helpful. They're super valuable to the algorithm. If you guys can retweet this video, if you can retweet my other content, just take a couple minutes to do that. It's a big help. I hate asking for help in this way. I hate begging you guys, but it really does help a lot. Appreciate you, Tim. Says Tim B. Says he's got me covered. Any chance you link up with Grant soon? I'd love to. Grant, it's been a while since Grant and I had a show. You may or may not be aware, we've done the farmer's market on Grant's channel a couple times. I think he came on my channel once. Love talking to Grant. That's a good idea to reach out to him. Dan Patrick is one of the good ones left. Yes, from that era at ESPN where things were still good, where they weren't looking the other way, where they weren't burying their heads in the sand, where they were doing actual investigative journalism. I do have a question for you guys, though. Do you think that ESPN might be looking into this Kyle Shanahan situation and investigating it? Remember, ESPN has taken a lot of heat for not investigating the Matt Miller situation, for not investigating they wrote that story about the Rossini Vrabel thing, but don't give me an hour to talk about what a joke that was. Taking a lot of heat for the lack of coverage on those two things. They could get a win by investigating this Kyle Shanahan situation. And I did think it was interesting that Adam Schefter apparently got pulled off the coverage of this story. He was replaced by a guy with the last name Klemko, who is a senior investigative reporter with ESPN. So Schefter, who has a conflict of interest, has been removed and has been replaced with a senior investigative journalist. Could ESPN be looking into this situation? Imagine an ESPN breaking news at 10 a.m. Eastern time, 3 hours before kickoff. ESPN releases a story, we got the body cam footage. It doesn't line up with what Kyle said. Imagine that impact on the 49ers. And Kyle Shanahan knows this. He knows that this information coming out midseason, even if it's benign, even if there's nothing bad about it, even if it lines up to a T with his story, it's going to be a distraction midseason. He knows this, and he's still not releasing it now. He's taking that chance. He's weighing the pros and cons. Yeah, that would suck. But maybe Kyle's saying it would suck even more if I released it right now. I'm going to take the chance on it not being released midseason. I'm here to tell you, Kyle and the 49ers, if that's your tactic, if there is something that you're covering up and you're just hoping that it doesn't get uncovered, it's going to get uncovered. I will not stop. I will explore every avenue to release this body cam footage, to release the accident report that Jeremy Jones stonewalled from the 49ers beat reporters. If you think I was like a dog on the bone with the Rossini Vrabel story, I will not quit because it's too important. The people in that community, the people in Palo Alto, deserve to know the truth. They deserve transparency that you've not given them, Palo Alto PD, the last few years when you tried to encrypt your radio, when you wouldn't release the footage from the dog bite incident. You guys know what the dog bite incident was, by the way? I forget the guy's name. He was sleeping in his own backyard, and a police dog came and was ordered to attack him. Completely innocent. The guy did nothing wrong whatsoever. He was not involved in the incident that they were looking for the person from. Imagine you're just chilling in your backyard and a police dog is ordered to attack you. Yeah, that body cam footage took their sweet time releasing that, even though the law required them to release it sooner. This is the same police department that responded to Kyle Shanahan's accident, guys. This is the same police department that has a habit of not activating their body cam footage, according to an audit. Guys, this is not old news. Look at the date. June 17th. This is a little more than a month ago that audit came out. This is what we know about the Palo Alto Police Department. They have a history of not being transparent, guys. We got comments coming in. What do we got here? You've been fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. I hope you'll subscribe on Substack. The link is in my Twitter bio if you're not already. I'll say that one more time. The link is in my Twitter bio to subscribe to Substack. It is completely free. Some of you are like, I'm not on Substack. Just sign up, guys. It takes 2 minutes. It helps a lot. You'll get some email notifications from me when big stories are coming out. For instance, people that were on my Substack got an email today that said, alert, Kyle Shanahan says he was using auto drive feature in press conference today. Just like I suggested 13 days ago when I was laughed at. If you're just tuning in, Kyle Shanahan had a press conference today. 3 things changed in Kyle Shanahan's story. Originally, we were told the cell phone was between the seats. Now we're told the cell phone was behind the seats. Originally, the story had nothing to do with an auto drive feature. Today it comes out, Kyle says he was using the auto drive feature, and the Tesla may have even malfunctioned, or maybe it was him too. It seemed like he was kind of half taking responsibility. And Kyle also said he's not really feeling that guilty about this situation because it was an accident. Well, a little while back, he was crying in his office. And finally, Kyle said he was turned around. He was turned around in the back seat to get the phone. Why was there so much damage to your face? I thought that the garage door opener on the visor is what hit close to your eye. How does that happen when you're turned around, Kyle? A lot of questions, guys. That press conference presented us with a lot of questions, but notice the beat writers in the room didn't ask these follow-up questions. And I don't want to be too hard on them because sometimes you think of things after. This happened to me a lot as a reporter. I wish I would have asked that question. That would have been a good question. Darn. So I don't fault them for that. But now they've all got the opportunity to ask that question. Now they can ask that question. They can go up to Jeremy Jones at practice and be like, hey, Jeremy, just a quick question. Were you at the scene, by the way? Or are they just going to show the same level of lack of curiosity that Tim Kawakami did when he found out about this accident or aspects of this accident on the Thursday before it was released by Adam Schefter and the 49ers 1 minute apart? Let's see how curious the 49ers beat writers are from this point forward. Remember, we got David Lombardi is one of those beat writers. The people asking questions about the Kyle Shanahan accident don't deserve to be on Twitter. That was before we found out Kyle was at fault. How much egg did David Lombardi have on his face when he criticized people like me who were asking questions right before Kyle Shanahan admitted fault? Somebody says he only felt guilty before he got the NDA signed. I'm curious if an NDA is signed. Somebody said Kawakami, Mayoko, Lombardi are all just shills for the 49ers. Agree with 2 of those 3. I actually like Mayoko. And while Mayoko tends to be a little bit more friendly to the 49ers, I've also seen him be critical too. He has the ability to be critical when necessary. Kawakami and Lombardi, they just don't. I heard someone say today, Lombardi was talking about how good the 49ers looked at practice, and even Kyle wasn't happy with the practice today. Lombardi's always going to have the rose-colored glasses on. And I don't mind that too much. He has that reputation. But, David, when you're coming after people who are asking questions right after those same people, myself included, have released information that you didn't because you're not looking into this situation, you're just assuming that everything that you hear is true, you're trusting the Palo Alto Police Department, you're trusting Kyle Shanahan, you're trusting the 49ers, even though the 49ers have paid Palo Alto Police Department in the past, even though Palo Alto Police Department has been involved in a cover-up. Not my words, that's the words of the auditor. Even though Palo Alto Police Department has a history of not activating body cam footage. Even though Palo Alto Police Department is not willing to give up the body cam footage right now. If you're just tuning in, I did share some information. This is my latest communication from Palo Alto PD that I got after my response to them after they denied the body cam footage, the 911 audio, and the accident report. I sent them a message saying, hey guys, the law says, and here's the law, you are required to work with me in good faith. I'm asking for a description of all records associated in the case pursuant to Vaughn versus Rosen. It's been 7 days. They haven't responded yet. Am I surprised? No, because in the dog bite incident and another incident, which I wrote about in my article, forget the guy's name, but I saw the video. Dude was like standing outside against the fence. More police brutality type stuff. Even though the law said they had to, they just didn't. This is literally a law enforcement agency not following what the law says. There are Senate bills that says body cam footage has to be released when there are allegations of police misconduct. I've spent 2 hours on this stream talking about why people believe there is police misconduct. They're choosing not to follow the law. I'm going to say that again. Palo Alto Police Department, which is a law enforcement agency, is choosing not to follow the law. Now, I can kind of see it in the police dog bite video, right? We can get in their heads a little bit like, oh, this makes us look real bad. We don't want to release this. And you understand their hesitancy in releasing that. What's their hesitancy in releasing this video? Why will Palo Alto Police Department, why are they willing to break the law and not release the video? That's the question, guys. Is it because there has been misconduct on the part of people at the Palo Alto Police Department? Is it because Jeremy Jones has played some sort of conduit intermediary role between the 49ers and the police department using his law enforcement background? I'm not sure, but the body cam footage and the accident report would certainly help clarify things. But for some reason, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, and the Palo Alto Police Department don't want to release that footage. More comments rolling in. The amount of people, I don't see the appeal. I really don't. If you just want someone that's going to tell you what you want to hear, even if it's inaccurate, even if it's wrong, even if it's condescending, then yeah, follow David Lombardi. Somebody said the NFL won't let this become a bigger scandal before the Australia game in a month. A lot of favors will be called into the networks. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, the pregame show, for instance. Are they going to mention this? I think Kyle should have the cast off by then, I would imagine. David Lombardi is an apple polisher. You guys are funny in these comments. ESPN won't cover this. Kyle knows as much hidden stories about the NFL as anyone. ESPN won't risk their NFL relationship over this. Okay, here's the thing, 06 Keeley. I agree with you, but respectfully, you're missing something. ESPN is the NFL. ESPN is 10% owned by the NFL. And I bet you in 5 years, they'll be 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% owned by the NFL. They're the same entity. It's not just a friend asking a friend for a favor. They are the friend. They are themselves. Massive, massive, massive conflict of interest. And I don't think it's a coincidence. That's why ESPN went so lightly with the Diana Rossini story, because Diana Rossini worked for ESPN from 2015 to 2022. That's why ESPN's going so lightly with the Matt Miller coverage, because Matt Miller was just working with them up until that car accident. That's why Adam Schefter has not tweeted the word Rossini once since April when the Sedona photos came out. Think about that. Think about all the Rossini coverage you've seen. We had the boat photos, right? We had the resignation letter. We had the statement from Vrabel. We had the press conference from Vrabel. We had the New York City bar photos. There was so much coverage of the Rossini story. Adam Schefter doesn't tweet the word Rossini. Double check me, fact check me. Do an advanced Twitter search right now. Type in the word Rossini. Type in the handle Adam Schefter. He hasn't tweeted it. And I'm just curious if that might have to do with the fact that Robert Kraft owns the Patriots and owns a piece of a sports betting app called Boom Entertainment with Adam Schefter. They're business partners. The layers of conflict of interest here are incredible. They're so intertwined. You got the ESPN's conflict of interest with the NFL. You got Robert Kraft's conflict of interest with Adam Schefter. You've got Adam Schefter's conflict of interest with Kyle Shanahan. You've got Kyle Shanahan's conflict of interest with Chris Sims. I don't know who Tim Kawakami's loyalty is to. Someone explain that one to me. Tim Kawakami, what the hell are you doing, man? I've seen him attempt to answer these questions, and none of the answers are satisfying. None of them make sense to me. Somebody says, nobody's saying you're wrong with any of this, but what is the end game here? I get that question a lot, Warren. It's a very fair question to ask. I will say I don't have a particular goal or end game in mind, right? Like I've been accused of that. Like, oh, you want to see Kyle Shanahan get fired? No, I'm a 49er fan. Who wants their, by all accounts, Kyle Shanahan's a very successful head coach. He hasn't won a Super Bowl, but he's a highly successful, well-liked coach. Who wants to see their highly successful, well-liked coach leave the team? Journalists have to take their bias out of things. I have a bias toward Kyle Shanahan. I'm able to compartmentalize it. When I was covering the Vrabel story, do you know how many people said to me, oh, if it was Kyle Shanahan with Diana Rossini, you wouldn't be covering the story like this. You still think so now? Now I'm being confused. Before I was being accused of being too biased toward Kyle Shanahan when I was writing about Vrabel. Now I'm being accused of being biased against Kyle Shanahan. Maybe none of those things are true, and I'm just an objective journalist. I just invite people out there to just maybe consider that I might actually be an objective journalist who has the ability to compartmentalize my bias. Somebody said Grant tweeted out Schefter earlier. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. This was great. You should have. Do you know how hard I laughed when I read that the first time? Like I'm laughing hard now, hearing you, Tim, mention it. When I read it the first time, alone in my living room, I died. Grant is funny. Grant is hilarious. You shouldn't be. But the thing is, I don't even think Grant was trying to be funny here because it's true. It's true. He shouldn't be allowed to report on the 49. It's like actually a fair statement. Other journalists are held to that standard. It's the reason the Vrabel Rossini story is a problem. You can't get that close to your source. Everybody this is journalism 101. Like there's expressions out there. They'll tell you that on the first day of journalism school. Literally, day one of journalism school. Journalism 101. Don't get too close to your source. Freshmen in college, learn this. Maybe the freshmen are taking liberal arts classes. Sophomores in college, learn this. Adam Schefter is able to still cover the 49ers. Even though he's that close with Kyle Shanahan. He's that close with Kyle Shanahan's dad. What? I'm going to tell you guys a story real quick, okay? When I was a sports writer, before I covered any NFL games, any MLB games, etc., I started off covering high school, college stuff. God, I even covered a freaking Little League game at one point. I covered an American Legion baseball game. And I don't know if you guys out there know what American Legion is, at least in the Northeast. I don't even know if it's like all across the U.S., but in the Northeast, it's kind of like a summer baseball league. A lot of high school kids playing it. Anyways, one of my best friends in the world, who's now passed away, love you, Dan. One of my best friends in the world was playing in a game. And he had 3 hits in the game. And I had to make the decision as a writer. Tony, if you put that Dan Donahue had 3 hits in this game, you need to disclose that to your audience in some form or fashion. I chose just not to include it in the story because it was kind of borderline. It's like, I could mention this, could not. It wasn't like a huge, great performance, game-winning home run or anything like that. I knew as a sports writer at, how old was I? 20? That I needed to disclose this conflict of interest about an American Legion baseball game in the summer. I knew that. Adam Schefter's covering the NFL. Adam Schefter's good friends with Kyle Shanahan. They're not acquaintances. They are close for decades. Adam Schefter wrote a book about Kyle's dad. They are very close. Adam Schefter puts out the tweet a minute after the 49ers and doesn't mention that he's friends with Kyle? Doesn't mention that Kyle was at fault in the accident and coordinates with the 49ers and apparently agrees to 11 days of silence with the 49ers? Not with Kyle, though. Kyle had nothing to do with that. Kyle would never tell his best friend that he was the one at fault in the car accident. Come on. Get out of here. So when Grant says Adam Schefter shouldn't be able to cover the Niners because of the conflict of interest, you guys think he's just trolling, and I'm sure there is a little bit of trolling in there. I'm sure there is. It's funny, but it's actually a really good point. Journalists are supposed to disclose their conflicts of interest. That's why the Diana Rossini story was such a big deal. It doesn't matter if Diana Rossini did have sex with Mike Vrabel or not. It doesn't matter. She was really close with him. And that's a problem. You can't get that close to your source. Adam Schefter is really close with at least one of his sources. And this is why it's a problem, guys. Because when you're that close with sources, you end up keeping your mouth shut for 11 days and working with that source's organization to coordinate the release of a story and then not mention who's at fault. You see the problem here? And sadly, it's not just Adam Schefter. It's Tim Kawakami. No curiosity, Tim. That should be Tim's new nickname. You know, Donald Trump always gives people nicknames. Tim No Curiosity Kawakami. That's Tim Kawakami's new nickname. How do you find out that the head coach of the team that you're a columnist for is involved in a car accident? He says he didn't have all the details, but you knew something was up. And you don't look more into it, Tim? You send out a tweet 90-ish minutes before it's announced saying, I think there's going to be some big news today. Cowardly. Completely cowardly. Now you're like, I'm in the know. But don't have the guts to actually look into this. Unbelievable. And it's just one of many unbelievable situations in this entire Shanahan accident story. If you're just tuning in, Kyle Shanahan's story changed in more ways than one. We were originally told the cell phone that he was reaching for fell between the seats. That story didn't make sense. It doesn't explain the injuries that he had. So today, the story changed completely, and Kyle says, oh, the phone was in the back seat, not between the seats, as every newspaper that covers the San Francisco 49ers said, because that's what Kyle told those writers. Kyle's story changed, guys. The first time around, there was not a peep. I listened to all the videos from all the beat writers who made videos about being in the room. I read every single one of their articles. Not a single one of them mentioned the Tesla auto drive feature. Not a single. I did. I mentioned it 13 days ago. Not a single one of them mentioned the Tesla auto drive feature. Then all of a sudden, Kyle brings it up today. Kyle, why didn't you mention the Tesla auto drive feature with beat writers if that may have played a role in the accident? Why didn't you mention that? The story's changing completely, guys. We were told that a garage door opener hit him in the eye because he was like this, reaching down to the side. He just said this is Kyle's words, not mine. I'm going to play it for you again. He said he was turned around. Listen for this part. Kyle said he was turned around. How did the garage door opener hit him in the eye if he was turned around? Kyle Shanahan, you are my favorite head coach. I want to stop investigating this story. All you got to do is take responsibility and release the footage, and I will stop investigating this story. Just take responsibility.
You know, I think everyone's done to a degree what I've done, but you know, dropping a phone and falling all the way to my back seat where I have to fully take my eyes off the road. You know, it's something that I normally wouldn't do. I've had autopilot for 9 years, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. And you know, who knows what happened when I turned around, whether it malfunctioned or whether I knocked it off. That's something I don't know yet. But regardless,
Kyle,
it is always your fault.
Kyle turned around and took his eyes fully off the road. Story number one, Kyle was reaching to the side, facing his visor, facing the garage door opener. That story doesn't seem to match his injuries because I showed you guys the crash test video. Story number two, turned around. Eyes off the road. You heard him say that. Explain the injuries then, Kyle. I thought the airbag hit you in the face. I thought the garage door opener hit you by the eye. You were turned around? Something's not right here, guys, and I don't know what it is. I get a lot of suggestions in DMs. I get a lot of comments. Hey, Tony, here's what I think happened. Some of them are just from other Twitter followers who have an opinion, and some of them are from people in the league. Some of them are from people somewhat in the know. I get a lot of theories, and I'm not 100% sure what happened. But it does seem like there's more to this story. And I just say that because the story keeps changing. There was 11 days of silence. There was a media coordination to keep this story quiet and to release it in a very strategic manner. Seems to be a lot of smoke here. And I'll remind you one more time. Last time I'm going to show this video, this is Emmanuel Acho for people who are just tuning in, saying that when he played in the NFL, the head of security for his team helped work with a corrupt cop to blame an accident on an innocent victim.
Boom! Hit him. I'm like, ow. Hit. I'm headed to practice, right? So all my teammates gonna have to drive by me. I hit one of our security people. He says, Acho, when the cop shows up, send the cop away. I'm going to send you another cop. And that other cop is going to say, it wasn't your fault. It was their fault. I was like, yo. I was like, wait, they do that?
if you believe Emmanuel Acho, because of an NFL security personnel for that team, an innocent person was blamed for his accident. By the way, you listen to that whole extended clip, it's even more fascinating. I encourage you to find it because the people that he's doing the podcast with are like, oh, like, Manuel, like, that's kind of messed up. And he's like, no, I don't feel guilty. Here's why. Because later on, they tried to say that they were injured and had injuries and they were faking injuries. I'm paraphrasing here. And then our security folks gave them tickets and signed jerseys. I wonder if any favors were given by the 49ers head of security to this 21-year-old and her family. Tickets, signed jerseys, money, other things. We got Marcellus Wiley, another NFL player, saying every NFL team has a fixer. Comments rolling in. The dog ate my homework. Kyle Shanahan quote. That's funny. Somebody says, not in this case with Kyle, but it's always been like that. Welcome to the world, unfortunately. Good comment. Kia said, this is in reference to Tim Kawakami, who I brought up earlier, not doing anything with this story. He should have kept quiet instead of sending a vague tweet. Yeah, it is worse to send that vague tweet out 90 minutes before you hear the news. I think it's ego stuff. It's like, look, I did know something was up. What's the point of sending that out? Keely asks, what's your next step if the police department doesn't respond? That's a very good question. I'm not going to reveal my hand entirely because I don't want them to know my next step. But I have absolutely already started thinking about that, and I will be ready for whatever their next step is. The law is a beautiful thing, guys, and they can hide behind laws, but there are other laws. There are other laws that say they absolutely should be releasing this footage. So I think a very likely scenario here is that this footage eventually does get released during the NFL season. High probability. I have a sports betting background. I like odds. I'm going to put that at about 50 to 70%. If this footage isn't released by the time week 1 rolls around, I think it'll be released during the season, maybe even in the playoffs. I really believe that. It's only a matter of time. Palo Alto PD loses these cases whenever they try to break the law. Palo Alto PD tried to encrypt their radio communications. They lost that. You can't do that. They tried to not release the body cam footage in the dog bite incident that I told you about, where the innocent man was bit by the Palo Alto Police Department dog because the police department officers told the dog to bite him, even though he did absolutely nothing wrong and wasn't the person they were looking for. They didn't want to release that. They eventually were forced to. So they will, I'm confident they will lose this battle. It's just a matter of when. It's just a matter of when they end up releasing it. And I'm not letting this go. I think this is the most interesting. This is way more interesting than the Rossini Vrabel story. This story is fascinating to me. The way people are acting right now is fascinating to me. The fact that the story keeps changing is fascinating to me. The fact that the 49ers have on their staff a security guard with 16 years of experience at a sheriff's office where the sheriff got in a lot of trouble for corruption and misconduct. That's fascinating to me. The fact that the 49ers beat writers met with Kyle Shanahan and not a word was mentioned about the Tesla auto drive feature that I wrote about anyways. Even though Kyle didn't mention it apparently, and even though the beat writers didn't write about it, I wrote about it. People called me crazy. People called me a conspiracy theorist. Let it go, Tony. Move on. 13 days later, Kyle admits, yeah, I was using the auto drive feature. And I was turned around. Remember Kyle's words? I was turned around to get that phone in the back seat. Kyle, if you were turned around, how'd you get those injuries on your face, bud? How did the garage door opener hit your eye if you were turned around? Why aren't other people asking these questions? To me, it's so clear. Like, these are the obvious follow-up questions to be asking. Palo Alto PD has historically received money from the 49ers. That is a fact. It's an indisputable fact. So you have a police department with a proven cover-up recently. Within the last 2 months, an audit came out, said they weren't activating their body cams. This same police department gets money from the San Francisco 49ers. The same police department noted, due to a clerical error, that Kyle Shanahan was not at fault in the accident and blamed it on a 21-year-old victim, according to the government records. Later said that was an accident. Prove it. Prove it was an accident by releasing the police report. Beat writers asked to see it. Jeremy Jones said no. This situation is weird, guys. It got a lot weirder today. I don't know why Kyle's story keeps changing, and it gives me a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's not good. Comments rolling in. Palo Alto police, look out for their locals. Certainly seemed like someone was looking out for Kyle Shanahan, but Fizz is your name. You say they look out for their locals, but they weren't looking out for the guy who got his face smashed into the windshield while he had his handcuffs, he had handcuffs on his back, like this. He was bleeding, and the cop said, "Oh, you're going to be bleeding a lot more." They weren't looking out for him. I think I would just amend. I agree with you, but I would just amend what you said. I don't think they look out for all of their locals. I think they look out for some of their locals. And it's fair to ask if race is involved. It's fair to ask if socioeconomic status is involved. It's fair to ask if being rich and famous played a role in that. But I don't see Palo Alto police looking out for everybody. I saw a dog bite a man in his own backyard, and then the police wouldn't even release the body cam footage for the longest time, even though the law required them to. So they're not looking out for everybody. I think they're looking out for some locals. Nice comment here about hush money. I've heard that before. Glenn says, the question to ask is, who is changing the story every day? Well, if you believe Marcellus Wiley that every NFL team has a fixer, then it would probably be the 49ers fixer who's leading this. Prominently. Yeah, I agree. We're on the same page then, brother. 100%. 100%. More comments. FYI, Tesla logs exact autopilot engagement, disengagement, reasons, driver inputs, attentiveness, monitoring, and more. Aren't there also cameras inside the Tesla? Like, that's what I'm told. I'm not a Tesla expert, but I'm told there's cameras inside the Tesla that will alert you if your eyes come off the road, etc. So I don't know how realistic it is to get footage from inside the Tesla. You guys might know better than me on that. Justin says, I think there was a Hard Knocks episode where Chris Carter would talk to the rookies and told them that every team has a guy that, if that's true, Justin, I would love that clip. I don't doubt it. I would love that clip. Someone find me that clip. Please DM me that clip. We got Chris Carter saying it. We got Marcellus Wiley saying it. We got Emmanuel Acho giving an example of he used one and a corrupt cop showed up at the direction of an NFL security guard. What the hell is going on here? Keely, if there's nothing to hide, they could release the body cam footage and the story is over. Something is being covered up. I could not agree with you more. All right, guys, this was fun. A little over 2 hours here. Coming up on 3 hours. I could do this all day. I haven't taken a single sip of water, gone to the bathroom or nothing since I sat down. This is a blast. And I'm fueled by you guys. I'm fueled by your comments. You can do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button on YouTube, hit that heart button on Twitter, retweet this, retweet my other tweets, guys. If you just take 30 seconds, I hate to beg, but it really does help make a massive difference in the algorithm. I appreciate y'all. I will be digging more into this story right here about the sheriff that Jeremy Jones worked for, who was found guilty of misconduct and corruption, little pay-to-play scandal. same sheriff's office where Jeremy worked for about 16 years and rose up the ranks very, very quickly from deputy to sergeant to lieutenant to captain. We'll be looking a lot more into that. And I will be also looking into city council members and what kind of donations they've taken during their election cycle from the 49ers or people associated with the 49ers. And we're waiting on communication from Palo Alto PD. Again, this is the latest communication from them to me. Supposedly, they're going to get back to me answering this question. It's been 7 days. We'll see. But remember, the law requires that they work with me in a good faith effort. Appreciate you guys. That's all I got. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for watching. We'll chat soon. Take care.